let's talk about something else for a minute. Private sector players in Africa are this week meeting in Cape Town, South Africa, under the auspices of the African Continental Free Trade Area Business Forum. It's been convened by AFTA, its secretariat, which is based here in Ghana, under the patronage of President Cyril Ramaphosa. My colleague Blessed Soga is there, which explains why I'm here. And he's joining us with some other Ghanaian business leaders. Blessed, I suspect you have been having quite the time of it following all the proceedings in South Africa. If we can have you unmute so that we can hear you clearly, Blessed. We can't wait to get the lowdown on everything.
Apologies.
Yes,
Apologies,
we can hear you now.
Yes, it does happen. We say that all the time, but it's good to be talking to you from Cape Town, where, of course, private sector is converging here as part of moves to accelerate the African Continental Free Trade Area. You do know that Ghana is hosting the secretariat for the Continental Free Trade Area, a reason for which there's been a lot of attention from the private sector, both in Ghana and across the continent, just to accelerate this program that is seen as part of the solution to Africa's economic challenge. And the events actually took off yesterday with a lot of dignitaries, including the Secretary General of the Continental Free Trade Area, Wankele Mena, who spoke about what's happening to the continent, especially for us in Ghana. We can relate because there's a debt crisis looming, not just in the country, but across the continent as well. So these are some of the matters that are featured. We've also heard from the African Union state their position, the need for us to accelerate AfTA or intra-Africa trade so we can build resilience and to meet the targets of Agenda 2063, which is making or seeking to make the African Union a global or a major power player in the world. So these are matters that are featured, but the private sector appears to be very much aligned since yesterday. The reactions and the conversations that have been coming up are indeed related to finding ways by which we can increase the framework, make it better, and make it work for Africa. Indeed, I must state that there are a number of Ghanaian dignitaries and officials here. We have, of course, the JIPC CEO, Yofi Grant, who I spoke to a couple of hours ago. He's been touching on a wide range of issues relating to the IMF, relating to creating a friendly business community, because you know that the 3 new tax measures have been raising a lot of eyebrows in the private sector there in Ghana. So these are matters that he's been speaking to me about. There are many from the private sector as well. Just yesterday, I was interacting with the chief executive of the Magdan group of companies. Magdan is also here, and the Deputy Trades Minister, Michael Otrebefi, who I spoke to earlier today. There are quite a number of them. Of course, as the days go by, we'll bring you those conversations. But what's key is that the focus is on the private sector, the need for private hands to come on board and to trade some more and to make the continent much more resilient. And there are indeed some bottlenecks relating to the payment systems, which the Secretariat says it is working on. But beyond that as well, at the end of the day, the belief is that when all these issues are addressed, intra-Africa trade, which is below 10%, will be significantly boosted, so we can take advantage of the 1.3 billion market that's at stake.
Right. I want to bring in the Executive Secretary of Africa Prosperity Network, Hannah Awuku. Hannah joins us via Zoom. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for your time this afternoon. Now, tell us, how significant is this meeting in South Africa? To many, it's yet another in a series of meetings. Since AfTA was established, it appears that their main progress has been in meetings. Why haven't we started trading? Why are we still sitting behind the bottlenecks of payment processes and all these other things that were issues before AfTA was formed? Why?
Good evening from Cape Town, and thank you for having me this afternoon. I wouldn't say that it's only another meeting, as you put it, because I think it's time that we bring the private sector on board to ensure that what the AFTA has been established for is achieved. Basically, the meetings today, which started from yesterday, are very important because it shows that policy leaders, which happen to be, let me say, the AU, establishing the AFCFTA Secretariat to ensure the implementation of the policy is working. Protocols have been put in place, but we all know that states do not trade amongst themselves. It's the private sector. If the private sector does not take charge of the implementation of the AFCFTA, it's not going to work. So basically, what the AFCFTA Secretariat is doing is trying to put the private sector in line. Should I say, trying to convince them that we are doing our part by negotiating and meeting with heads of states to get them to buy into the policies, into the framework, into the protocols. And we are almost through. What is the private sector doing? If you do not start trading or you do not start taking advantage of the protocols to start trading amongst yourself, we are not going to get anywhere. So that is what these meetings happening here in Cape Town are about. And it's not just another meeting, but it's just to encourage the private sector to take advantage of the opportunities that the AFTA brings.
You make a very important point about the need for the private sector to take charge in order for this thing to actually be real. So let me ask you this. How far away are we from actual implementation? How far away are we from a Ghanaian selling coconuts, getting his products to someone who is ordering in bulk in Senegal?
So I think we are not really far away. What is happening now is that the protocols are there. And you remember recently, the AFTA launched what we call the Guided Trade Initiative, which has about 9 countries, including Ghana, already trading. And you reckon that during that, there was a news item that Kenya shipped its first consignment of tea to Ghana.
Yeah.
So trading has begun. And so, like I said earlier, it is left with the private sector to take advantage. The protocols are there. That's you also have the policies that gives them the free movement, as we all know. But of course, as your colleague said earlier, the bottlenecks are there, which are being worked on. And I think currently most of the issues have to do with clearly free movement of people across borders, because we still have the existing regional economic communities with their own trade policies also probably conflicting with the AU's general agenda of having free movement of people and goods and services across borders. So these are things that are being rectified. But nonetheless, I think if a coconut seller would want to move his or her coconut from the borders of Ghana to Cote d'Ivoire, mainly from the discussions that have been going on since yesterday, we need to make sure that we have what we call the aggregate platforms where we can probably put them together and then make trading easier for them, because I'm not sure you would want to have one coconut seller, maybe with just a truck of coconut, trying to move coconut from the borders of Ghana to Burkina Faso or to Cote d'Ivoire. So I think that the progress are being made. And like I said, we are not far away. We are not far away at all. It's just a matter of time. And it's clearly important that the private sector leads this, because without them, this is not going to be possible.
That's encouraging, Hannah. Stay with us. I want to bring back Blessed. Let's get an idea from you, Blessed, of the appetite. What are you observing in terms of the eagerness and the amount of connections you are seeing being built between these private sector players who have come together in South Africa?
Well, given the fact that the African Union says it is very much poised to accelerate the implementation of the free trade area, it is also seeking to leverage on the already existing networks of businesses and organizations that are from civil society, just to try and get a concerted effort and getting that ideal point where, of course, trading can be facilitated with ease. And so, as I was indicating earlier, the business community appears to be very much aligned. In fact, this conference is focused and we're told at the start by the Secretary General that this conference is very much focused on the private sector. So it's not as though you want to have government officials come, take pictures, and go back home, but this is a real networking opportunity for businesses who are interested, first of all, in the African welfare, in the African innovation spirit, and also trying to build that platform for them where they can connect and easily trade. If AFTA will work, definitely it will work if the business community or the private sector is ready to participate. So it's the reason for which all of these global players are indeed converging here in Cape Town just to participate in that exercise. And I must say that there appears to be that goodwill on the side of the South African government, and also we're seeing even some of our officials come here. Just a couple of hours ago, the High Commissioner for Ghana to South Africa, who was then, of course, Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister Charles Oredu, was also here, just supporting the team of investors and also the private community as well as the government officials that we have here. And it's been a very smooth process so far, with many expressing hopes that indeed, if this will work, then of course Africa will be on that path of resurgence. So that's been the global, picture. That's been the unique picture we're getting from what's happening now, except to say that the continent is also finding itself at a point where, of course, there are some distractions. You'd want to call them distractions, because first of all, we're coming out of a global pandemic, COVID-19, and now you have the onboarding of the Russian-Ukraine war, which is now piling a lot of pressure on many African governments to opt for the easy way out. And the easy way out will obviously be about aid, loans, donor support. And I put this question to the Secretary General on Sunday when there was a press conference, that given these distractions, what will be his message to the African governments? And of course, the response was that if you look at what's happening with the IMF spring meetings, it's unlikely that the IMF, the Bretton Woods, the Western system will ramp up support for African countries. It's the reason for which this conference is very much key to the liberation and liberalization as well of many African economies, so that when we trade within ourselves, the prosperity will obviously remain here. It's the reason for which you have the likes of the Prosperity Network pushing that agenda and asking for governments and African businesses to come on board.
Yeah. South Africa in itself, it's a huge market. Tell us, how well have they and their local businesses patronized this event? How involved are they?
Very much involved. And of course, you see one of the brands right behind me. I'm not marketing them, but you know of that brand, and that brand is also even in our country. So it tells you that they are supporting the process. In fact, there are some brands as well who, of course, from your perspective, you may deem as not being interested in the African prosperity conversation, but surprisingly, they are supporting this conference and supporting the dialogue that's going on. In fact, they are unveiling some of their innovations that would help drive the whole project of the African Continental Free Trade Area. So it's a mixed reaction here, but it's clear that indeed a lot of South African brands, the private community, are apt for this. They want to scale up trade and interactions with many countries. And I'm very much interested in the Ghanaian story. So yes, precisely.
Well, I was going to ask you about the Ghanaian story. You've already mentioned Daniel Macaulay. Any other well-known Ghanaian business personalities who have made a presence there?
Well, there are a number of them. There is also Wear Ghana, for instance, people who are driving innovation through clothing lines. And I've seen Rex Omar, the musician. You'd expect that he's a legendary musician, so, well, he has nothing to do with business. I was interacting with him yesterday. He seems to be very much passionate about transforming the narrative that Africans cannot manage their own affairs. He believes very much in the intra-African trade, a reason for which he tells me that, of course, he's willing to go to every extent just to support the initiative from his side. There are also African businesses such as the Allied Consortium, for instance, that I was interacting with of course, on the sidelines of this event. They are a South African and a Ghanaian brand, for instance, moving into the areas of construction, real estate, and then oil and gas. For instance, there are some practices that we need to learn from South Africa. I was speaking to the group chairman, the CEO, who was telling me that, for instance, they want to change the housing system that we have in Ghana, where there are challenges in terms of rent and mortgages. So they want to bring investors, for instance, from South Africa, who would come and invest in our economy. So it's good tidings indeed that's coming through from Cape Town here.
Hannah, let me bring you back in, because Ghana is going through its own moment in history. We're aspiring to an IMF program. A terrible sentence, but that's exactly what's happening. And at this time, it's important that we take every opportunity to leverage on anything at all that will get us quicker out of this financial decline. To your mind, what are some of the opportunities that as a country we should be grabbing at with both hands when it comes to this AfCFTA arrangement?
So, development and market are obviously connected to numbers. And for Ghana, as a country with about 34 million people estimated, you join the Africa Continental Free Trade by giving your business people access to a market of 1.3 billion people. I think that alone is a big opportunity if our business people are able to leverage. And also, you also give your business people an opportunity to have access to a continental GDP of more than 3.4 billion. I think these are things that if we as a country tap into, as we allow our businesses to expand. And as such, we don't rely so much on global markets, which actually affect us anytime there is a global problem. I remember your colleague mentioning the Ukraine-Russia crisis. It's actually being mentioned by almost every speaker who spoke, because these are people who lead businesses. And to them, it has very serious implications on their business. So to me, if Ghana has any long-term plans in terms of economic planning, I think it's better we all throw our weight behind this agreement, have it done, and then we allow people to have access to a larger market, which of course will also improve their revenues. And remember, if this agreement is properly implemented, it is estimated that over 50 million Africans are going to be lifted out of abject poverty. Remember, this includes Ghanaians. Also, the incomes of people are going to increase with more than 9%. So basically, there are some goods that comes with this, and I think it's important that we all buy into. So to me, I think it's important that if Ghana does not only become a host country of the Secretariat, but also push for its total implementation so that we can all reap the benefits.
Well, let's hope that these bottlenecks can be removed as quickly as possible so that we can truly start to see the benefits spread across the continent. Hannah Awuku is Executive Secretary of the Africa Prosperity Network. She is joining us from South Africa, where she's participating in the latest AfCFTA meetings of the private sector seeking to leverage upon the agreement as well as they can in practical terms. Thank you, Hannah. And thank you, Blessed. You're certainly soaking it all in, but don't stay there too long, because you know we'll miss you. Thank you very much.
Indeed.
Thank you.
There you go. All right.